welcome to the Keys to Therapy. Today's episode is going to conclude my series called Working In and then Settings I've Worked in. So this last one is about private practice. That's where I'm currently at, and that's where I plan on staying. So I talked in the last episode about working in a group practice and how that was, the pros and cons, what my experiences were. And so I really enjoyed that setting, even though it had some of the cons that I mentioned in it as well, with like pay being kind of, fluctuating all of the time and not really having a lot of control over certain aspects of the business. So once COVID hit, so 2020, when all of us had to go home and work virtually, I realized I actually really like that. And the expenses are so low. And I'd always, like I said previously, I always wanted to get into private practice. That was my ultimate goal, is to work for myself. And I'm pretty type A, I'm very organized. So I knew that running a business would be something that, even though none of us have any training in typically, I think it was something that I really wanted to do and learn. And so since I like to have all of the information before I jump into anything, I'm definitely a planner. Once in 2020 hit, and there was some things that I wasn't totally loving about where I was working, and I saw how independently I could work from home. And I was like, why am I giving away 40% of every check when I'm using all of my own supplies here for the most part? I'm using my own internet. I had to buy my own little desk and chair, and I'm using my own paper and ink when I have to print stuff and scan it, and all the little things that I was like, I don't mind learning about marketing. I don't mind worrying about billing and doing some of these things. So I don't want to knock a group practice, because there's some people, and I know a few of them personally, that they don't ever want to get into the business side of things. They don't want to worry about marketing. They don't want to worry about getting clients. They don't want to worry about being a business owner and dealing with the taxes and dealing with, filing the paperwork and whatever other stuff. And that's fine. I mean, I think there's always going to be group practices, because there's going to be people who just want to go see their clients and go home, but have a more flexible schedule than you could at a lot of the other settings that I've talked about. But for me, having the control and that flexibility on my own terms really meant a lot to me. So once, like I said, it was summer 2020, I was like, all right, I can totally do this, and I want to do this, and I finally feel like I'm ready to do this. I had a much clearer idea after all that experience I had of who I like to work with, how I like to work, what hours I work best in, what that work-life balance would need to be for me to be happier. And I figured out pretty quickly with some of the insurance stuff that I learned there that I didn't want to take insurance. So I spent 2 years actually watching videos, looking at all the different aspects of running a private practice. One of the people who I think helped the most was Private Practice Skills. Her name's Marie Fain. She's got a YouTube channel, and I'll link her stuff below. And she had a lot of videos on private practice stuff. So I watched a ton of those. I listened to all the podcasts and free resources that were out there. I started to put together first the schedule that I would want, and then some of the branding stuff. What colors would I want? Because that's the part that's fun. So you could sign up for Canva. It's free. There's a paid version, but you don't need that to access the majority of the stuff. And played around with logos and names, and learned all about branding and colors and schemes and fonts and all of that stuff. And like I said, YouTube's your friend. There's a lot of resources out here for free. There's a lot of podcasts where people talk about their journeys and how they did things. So I just consumed every resource I could, and I had a folder on my computer that was all the different private practice stuff, free downloads that I found, different resources that other people used, joined a bunch of different Facebook groups, and people would post questions in there. And so if they had information, I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. Then I would just add it to this running document that I had. Now, I was seeing 7 clients a day, Monday through Thursday. So I really didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of this other stuff. But in the free time, I'm watching TV on a Saturday. I'll sit on my computer and play with the colors and logo schemes, or color schemes and logo ideas. And I'll look at some different names, and then I'll Google if they've been trademarked, or if they are already taken by the Secretary of State in that state. You know, like different things like that. Plus, I knew I wanted to come back to North Carolina at some point. And when this was all going on, I was in Virginia Beach. So figuring out what the laws were and how the process worked here and going through all of that. So taking my time with it. But I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to learn from other people's mistakes. I wanted to take the parts of the group practice that I like and replicate some of that. And I wanted to leave some other aspects of it behind. So there was a lot of different pieces for it. Now, you don't need to take 2 years to plan yours, but I knew I was going to be doing a move most likely on top of that. And there was stuff going on with like my husband's job and some different things personally that I was like, all right, I can kind of see what's coming and that a change might be needed all around. So yeah, so I recommend you look up all the free resources that you can when it comes to private practice, if that's the route that you want to go, and really think about what works best for you. Because I think a big mistake a lot of people make when they're building their own practice is they focus on what would work best for their clients. So if they're like, I just want to work with kids, but I have my own kids and I need to be home by 3 every day, so I can't see clients in the afternoon, but that's when most kids are free. There's ways to work around that, especially now with virtual sessions. So too many people get caught in this thing where they're working the hours that they think their ideal client can work with them. But now they've developed a practice that doesn't suit them or their personal needs. So you just kind of created the same agency type of work that you left. You're restricted by your clients. You are unhappy with your hours. You might be burned out. So really focusing first on what it is that you want to do. I'm sure I'll do a ton of videos in the future about private practice and all the different elements of it. So this episode's really just going to be an overview like the other ones were about pros and cons and the process. But I decided for my schedule, I'm not a morning person. So I was like, I'm not starting until 11. And I don't want to work past 6. And, I just kind of built that in. I used to have a half-hour lunch break when I worked at the group practice. That was absolutely not enough time to eat, to go to the bathroom, to do my notes from the first half of the day, to answer texts and stuff from people, that had been texting me the last 3-4 hours that I'd been with clients. Any one thing, you run into someone in the bathroom, and now there goes 5 minutes of your break, and you really didn't have that long of one to begin with. So I was like, definitely not. So I made sure I had an hour break in the middle of the day. Make sure I only see 6 people in a day. And that's still sometimes pushing it. But you account for cancellations too. And Monday through Thursday again, but have Thursday be the lightest day. So I can really pack Monday through Wednesday and have Thursday be a day that I just see like a select few people and have that be like a cancellation day. So I can scoop people over and not lose the money. Yeah, so I realized I wanted to do all virtual, especially moving out of state and taking a lot of my clients with me. You'll hear a lot of stuff about non-competes and things like that, non-compete agreements with group practices, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately up to the client. The practice doesn't own the client. They own their records and their charts, so any notes you've done, you're not allowed to take with you. But the client has free will to choose where they want to go. So I had a lot of clients, like 20-something clients, follow me, which was amazing. And so, yeah, I decided to stay virtual. And over time, I've shifted my schedule a little bit more as I've been doing it, figure out what works, what doesn't. For me, private pay is the only model I'll use. And I do provide super bills to my clients, which super bills are like detailed receipts that they can submit to their insurance company. It's got all the billing codes and all the stuff they would need. And if they have out-of-network benefits, then they get paid back, sometimes a large percentage of what it is that they paid me. And for most of my clients, I end up getting back everything but what they would have paid for a copay anyway. So it's almost like they pay me up front and like loan the money, from the insurance company, and then they get that money back from the company. So, and I'll, again, probably do like a whole video on that and like the different aspects of private practice, the different terms and what everything is. But yeah, so that made me feel better about going private pay, knowing that so many of my clients were still going to get reimbursed, and they do now, and it's been 2 years. So I liked knowing that the next day that money was in my account versus insurance taking possibly a couple weeks or so to come in. I know that the rate I set for that hour, if the client can only do half an hour, they can only do 45 minutes because they're late or whatever, I still get paid for that whole hour because I blocked that entire hour for the client, and I wouldn't have been making money otherwise. So it's like, if you paid for that hour, however much of that hour you use is what you use. Some people are down to like the 59th minute and they're like, oh, okay, I see I got 1 minute left. Hold on, let me tell you something else. And other people with 45 might be like, I'm good. And I don't get docked in my pay like you would with insurance. So yeah, there's lots of different benefits. So for me, that worked best. You know, I have friends that take insurance for their practices, and that's great. Works for them. They get a lot more clients coming through, and, you know, because they take insurance, so they're just more accessible in some ways. So, you know, they get a more steady influx of clients sometimes in private pay. But I know on my end, like for me, my finances are more steady and consistent. So, you know, it's just totally depends on how you want to work, how much of the billing process and insurance part you're willing to take on, you know, what your finances look like, how comfortable you are with taking insurance, and what aligns with you and your values and how you want to live your life. But like I said, you should definitely focus on how you want to live versus just what your clients need, because there's so many resources out here, and there's so many people that have so many different business models that even if you don't take insurance, there's 100 million therapists, it feels like, that will. So you're not the only option, especially with virtual stuff being so available now. People aren't limited to whoever's in their town. You can see somebody across the entire state. So if somebody specializes in something that you want, then you're not stuck seeing that person, you know, not having the person in your town and driving an hour or two to see them. You can just see them virtually. So, you know, and if you are somebody who's like, I know for me, I need to be in person. I have friends like that too, who are like, I have ADHD, I want to connect with people in person. Then they have offices and they see people in person because that's what works for them. So, and there's clients who want to do in person, and there's clients who want to do virtual. So I think sometimes if you base your entire practice off what your potential clients might or might not want or need, you're not serving yourself in any way, which then ultimately means that you're not going to be the best for your clients. Because if you're working hours that don't work for your life, and you aren't going by a pay scale that works well for you, well, now how are you serving your clients when you're burned out, or you're lacking sleep, or you're frustrated by certain processes, and now that's coming through? Like, there's just too many issues. So if you're in the process of developing your practice, really take the time to think through what you want. This could potentially be your dream job. So develop it that way. Not just how do I make money, but how do I specialize in the clients I know I work best in. So every person I take on, I know that they're going to be a good fit and that they're going to really get to meet their goals in our sessions together. So yeah, you just want to consider a lot of different things with it, but ultimately, more than anything, consider what you want and need and how you work best. Then start extending towards the marketing and all the other stuff when it comes to clients. But I've found that for private practice, the pros are control. I get to decide when I take time off. At the group practice I worked at, even though we had very limited PTO, it was like a flat rate. I mean, you could only do it for a couple hours. You had like limited hours that you could take it, and the flat rate was less than what you typically would have been making with some of the insurances. And you still had to get approved. Even if you were getting unpaid time off, you still had to fill out a form and get it approved. I didn't like all that. Like, if I'm not getting paid, what does it matter? If I'm taking care of my clients, what does it matter? So I think for me, having that control, because again, that works for some people. For me, it didn't. So if I say I'm going to go take this trip, like I was just in February in Hawaii and California. So I was gone for 10 days, talked to all my clients, took the time off, planned ahead and saved. Made sure everybody had emergency resources. Everyone who wanted an appointment right before or right when I got back was good to go. Other clients could wait the 2 weeks or the month or whatever it was till their next one. And I left and I had a great time. And I had like no emails from clients. I had 2 that were like, I think this is the week you're off. But everybody figured it out and it worked well. And I had fun and came back and it's good to go. So if you want that control and that flexibility with your schedule, and you're very organized and business minded, then definitely consider it. Now, the cons of private practice is, like I said, I took all that time off, right? I didn't get paid. I didn't work at an agency where I had PTO. For health insurance, you either have to be on your spouse's if you have one, or you have to do like the marketplace insurance. And so that's coming out, but it's a business expense, so that's helpful. But yeah, you're in charge of that. If you're a business owner, you have to pay quarterly taxes. So you're responsible for going in and every quarter paying the estimated federal tax and the state tax. All of that stuff might sound really scary, but it's not. It's really not that bad. Especially if you have some sort of accounting, bookkeeping system, then you'll be good to go. And that's the one thing I outsource, because I did not want to have to deal with all of that. So, you can pick and choose. I know people who outsource their social media because they don't want to deal with that, or outsource their billing because they don't want to deal with that. And then there's some people who do every single aspect of their business. So, a potential con is that you've got to make all of those decisions where you wouldn't have to at a group practice or an agency or a hospital or, something along those lines. But to me, that's worth it. So learn a couple of new skills to have full control and flexibility and see my ideal clients and, market myself in the way that feels authentic to me and do my best work with clients when I want to see them. So there's really not a ton of cons. You just really have to know yourself and know what your capabilities are and what you either want to do or are willing to outsource when it comes to all these aspects of business. So yeah, that's really the big overview on private practice. So I think if you're considering it, like I said, listen to some free resources, start developing what your business plan would be, and go from there. But if you feel like all of that's a bit intimidating still, like I said, take your time to learn some of it, and it might not be for you. Or it might be something that you really enjoy doing on the side, which some people do. They might work 2 nights a week or, half a Saturday or something like that because they like having their practice and they want to kind of start on a smaller scale while still having a typical job where they have benefits and they have a consistent schedule and clients and stuff like that. So really figure out what works for you and plan accordingly. But I hope that this series was helpful as I went through each place I've worked. There's lots of different places you can work that I haven't worked, but some of my past guests have discussed those. So if there's something in particular that you have a question about or just some more clarity on, leave a comment below. And if you want to stay on top of everything that's coming through with this channel, then go ahead and subscribe. And then I also have a Facebook group for new therapists. That link is below as well, and an email list. So sign up for whatever's speaking to you. But I hope that you enjoyed this series, and I will